This is a blast from the past. I worked on this project about 10 years ago, maybe. I was there as a freelancer, and we brought on 2 juniors, and I was there for 3 months, then it extended to 6 months. They had version 1 in the store. They got another round of funding. They wanted to completely rebrand it. The CEO was a designer, and he did all of this work himself. It looked really good. And they wanted to take the app in a different direction and give it a boost and add a bunch of features. So I took them from version 1 to version 2. The code base was rushed, as you might imagine, proof of concept, trying to get investors on board and all the rest of it. Got to version 1 and the code was in error state. So we had to do a lot of cutting out of the older code, and there's a lot of third-party frameworks that needed to be brought into more native alternatives, building up a proper foundation for this sliding animation that they had, which brought down a side menu. All of that needed to be well done, because the foundations of the app, if you're going to invest in it and have a long future with it, you want to have the foundations set right. So we did discuss that a lot and ended up rebuilding about 80% of it and rebranding it. But yeah, it was me and 2 juniors. Really enjoyed it, and there's some slides here that I prepared soon after I left for various interviews, and I've still got those slides to hand. So one of the challenges we had was, it's a social network app called Tagstr. The concept is very similar to Twitter, where you tag things and those tags then become trendable or followable and so on. And you can upload photos, videos or audio, and the CEO was a designer, so he was quite heavy on the filters and whatnot, and this was one of the core features. At the time, this looked a hell of a lot like Instagram. It was actually side by side identical, except for the grey colour at the bottom. And the challenge was to get any picture that you take to immediately appear on screen with a predefined filter, and then you get these thumbnails at the bottom showing you other filter options that you can select. But on an iPhone 4 and iPhone 4S at the time, this was challenging, and getting them to appear in a manner that was smooth and quick was tricky, especially if you pressed the back arrow there. When you pressed that, everything got deallocated. You couldn't really keep it around in memory because there was so much other things going on. Like if you went back from here now, there's a home screen full of content. There's a loading bar potentially at the top because you're uploading a previous post, which might have 10 images or a large video file. So everything was asynchronous, and you couldn't really hang on to resources. So once you press back here, all of this had to go and then get rebuilt. So it was quite annoying because you're building out this collection view at the bottom, and you've got the challenge of, well, I've got quite a large image. I need to compress the image, crop the image, apply a filter to it. It needs to be in a size large enough to fill the screen like this, but it also needs to be in a size small enough to fit in the thumbnail. So that means making a copy of it, cutting that copy down, and then creating, a bunch of other images that have filters applied. So there's a lot going on, and it took quite an intricate queuing system. We had core data as our persistence layer. There was network requests taking place, and then we had to mark in core data the state of the network events, whether they started, whether they finished, so that if you restarted the app, you could continue uploading your posts. It was a social network, so content had to get successfully uploaded, and they could have big payloads. So we worked closely with the back-end team. There was a total of about 6 people in the business. So it was a really small team, but we worked together to build a back-end service that complemented the front-end service in a way that promoted these things. And we achieved it, but it was quite a feat. And just the front-end stuff is what I want to focus on. And getting that collection view to play ball and to be nice and smooth, I was really proud of it. And there's a little demo there of some of the features. Excuse me. You can see that you can adjust the temperature and whatnot. And this is a slide just describing it's a bit more technical, just to explain how there's a video and an audio and an image represented as a subclass of media candidate. This was all in Objective-C back in the day, but we can probably just skip over that slide. The code was shared with a secondary app that wasn't in the App Store, but it allowed the designer, as a CEO, to hold an app in his hand and then adjust these values. When he liked what he saw, we would just write these values down on a piece of paper and hard code them in the app, and those then would become the filters. He was constantly changing his mind, and we really liked seeing this, and it looked a little bit different on the glass as well compared to how it looked on his desktop PC, desktop Mac computer. So, having the app in his hand was really useful, and we set it up in such a way so that he could produce filters, and then we could combine those filters with other filters, and we ended up having a bunch of, like a library of filters really, that we then dropped into a shared target. And we set it up in such a way so that once you put the filter in a certain directory, you add then an enum case and it would all just magically appear. It was quite nice, it was quite well set up. And this was the golden method, one of my proudest moments. So like I said, you go into that scene where you see the preview image. If you were to press the back button and then jump back in, take another picture, press the back button, jump back in, if you did that quickly on an iPhone 4, it just wouldn't play nice, to the extent where Instagram actually disabled this part of the feature. So if you went back in time now and saw the app that they had on the iPhone 4, the thumbnails at the bottom wouldn't actually be previews, they would be hot air balloons that had a filter applied. So it wouldn't be a representation of what you took. The main preview image would be there, but the bottom filters wouldn't as previews. But I achieved that. And the reason they did that was because it was just so bloody hard to get the collection view to present filters in a quick enough way. But my queuing system worked, and it works such that if you let it load, it would take about 1.8 seconds for the whole collection view to populate, and there were about 14 on the list, and you would see the first 3. So 1.8 seconds. We're talking it's quite snappy, but if you were to play around with it, you could catch them loading in. On the premium devices at the time, it wasn't an issue. Even on the iPhone 4S, it wasn't an issue. It would just be immediate. But on the iPhone 4 in particular, you could see it. One of the annoying things that bothered me, and this is probably just something I probably shouldn't have done, but I was enjoying myself at the time, was that if you did, in that 1.8 second window, see them load in and press the back button, when you return, I didn't want to then recreate the first one or the second one. I wanted to carry on from the second one to the third, So this continue building method allowed you to do that. And it meant the queuing system had to remain in memory, but the rest of the view controller and all the EQR could go. But that was fine, as long as this was happening in the background and it all got built, then it was fine. And it worked really well. I was really proud of it. And I thought I'd done something that Instagram hasn't done at the time. And I was really happy with that. And I don't get a chance to talk about it, so maybe I dwelled on that for a bit too long. Yeah, this is the NS operation callback system that I had went into a filters manager. I'm getting carried away with the technicalities now, but this is a little video as well about the animation that takes place. So this is the animating view controller delegate stuff. I did spend about 2.5 days on this, I gotta be honest. But getting it to look that nice, where everything slides off at the top and all around. I really like the details here. I'm really proud of it. I've worked on other apps that do things like this, and I just don't have the footage. They're not even in the App Store anymore. One was Tribe Sports, which is another social network I worked on before this one, and that had a bunch of features and challenges that I'd like to talk about, but I don't have any footage of it. I can't find it online anyway. But yeah, I guess I'll make another video like this soon enough to talk about other things.